All right, this is One Last Midnight, and welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Midnight. And this time we're going to look at chili con carne, or chili with meat. But first, a little bit of history. So chili was invented somewhere around the 1850s. Now, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint the exact time chili was created, but they seem to think that it was originated somewhere in Texas. There's an old legend that holds that immigrants from the Canary Islands, brought the recipe of chili with them when they settled in San Antonio in the 1700s. What historians do know is that chili was a very popular meal among the cowboys and the pioneers of the Western frontier. In the 1880s, chili stands became popular in San Antonio. Women known as chili queens would serve bowls of chilies to their customers, and it made its way to the 1893 Chicago Fair, and then it spread across the country. So this is my take on chili, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. All right, today we're going to make a little bit of chili. I will have a recipe in the description below with all the ingredients and what you need. It's a lot of stuff. And the recipe takes about a half an hour to prep and then about 2.5 hours to cook. So it's going to take you about 3 hours of time to get your chili done. This chili is not a spicy chili. It's more of a sweet chili. And while I do like a spicy chili, one of my sons does not. So we tend to make a sweet chili here. And then when we want to add some spice to it, we can add some spice to it for people who like spice. So let me go over everything that you're going to need. All right, you're going to need some beef, about 3 pounds of it, yellow onion. We have some crushed tomatoes in a can. We've got some tomato paste. We have some fire roasted diced tomatoes. We also have fresh tomatoes, garden fresh tomatoes, sweet pepper, bell pepper, a little bit of cilantro, some garlic, so a couple jalapenos, and the seasonings are a lot. So the seasonings, we're going to granulated garlic, basil, dry basil, chili powder, paprika, fresh ground pepper, some beef cubes, the bouillon cubes, some cumin, some brown sugar, granulated garlic, Worcestershire, and also cook with a beer and a little bit of wine. Now, if you're not a drinker, you don't drink alcohol, you can skip the beer and the wine. Just add yourself another can of tomatoes. The wine is a sweet white wine, so it gives the chili a little bit more of a sweet flavor to it, and the beer just adds a little bit of flavor to the meat. When you're cooking with alcohol cooks off, you're only left with the flavor. So there's no alcohol content in the food itself, just the flavor of the alcohol, which gives to the chili a little bit more depth. All right, so we're going to do all of our prep work, and then we'll get into cooking. All right, first I'm going to process this garlic. So I've got 4 cloves of garlic and a little bit of some extra. You grind up or chop up really fine. You're mincing it, essentially. 4 cloves of garlic. We're going to rough cut a large yellow onion. Yellow onion is usually called sweet onion in the grocery stores. And so not necessarily dice it, but just rough chop it. We're going to process the sweet green pepper. And these are typically sweet. You don't have to worry about them being spicy. But I'm going to make sure that I take all the seeds out so that we don't have to worry about having too much spice, just in case this was close to some sort of other pepper plant. Sometimes they crossbreed and stuff, and you get a really spicy sweet pepper. We're going to chop these down. And we're going to do the same for a red bell pepper. I've already cleaned it, remove the inside seeds, and I'm just going to chop these down. I'm going to cut them into strips first and then chop them up. You don't want to dice these, you just want to chop them. Make sure you don't have too big of pieces, but big pieces are kind of what we want. Okay, so I said I make a sweet chili. And in the next step, we're going to add the jalapenos in. I take out the seeds and the vein, but if you want a spicy chili, leave the seeds and the vein in. And then in later step, when we're adding in the seasoning, we'll add in another spice that will make it spicy for you. All right, next are 2 jalapenos. I couldn't find 2 red jalapenos. These actually came from my garden, and I can only find 1 red one out there. So I've got a red and a green one, doesn't matter. We don't want the heat from the jalapeno. The only thing we want from the jalapeno is the flavor. So we're gonna make sure that we get rid of the seeds and the vein. The heat comes from the seeds and the vein in the jalapeno. So we're gonna make sure we take all of that out. All right, and then this is what they look like when they're done, right? So you don't want to have any seeds or any vein in there. And we're gonna chop these up. Now I cleaned off the knife and the cutting board. Be careful when you're cleaning off your cutting board and your knife with jalapenos. The oil from the jalapeno, if you happen to be using hot water, will get in the steam, and then if you're breathing in that steam, it'll get in your lungs and it'll feel like your lungs are on fire. This is how they make pepper spray, by the way, is taking the oil out of the peppers and putting it into an aerosol form. Now, sometimes jalapenos tend to be hot, even though you've taken the seeds out. So taste one. And even though, yeah, it's got a little kick to it. It doesn't have a huge kick. The green significantly less than the red, but it does have a little kick. Now this is going into a big pot of chili, so I think this little bit of jalapeno is not going to add too much spice. All right, it's time to cook up some stuff. This is the first phase of the cooking process. We're going to cook up on medium heat. It's really windy out today, so on medium heat with a little bit of olive oil, about a tablespoon or 2. We're going to put in the garlic. That was the 4 cloves of garlic. The onions, the large onion, the sweet pepper and the red bell pepper, and the jalapenos. So we're going to cook those up until they are nice and soft. So this is going to take a little while, maybe about 10 minutes or so, when the temperature starts getting up there. Now while the onions and peppers are cooking, it's a good time to cook the beef too. So on medium-high, 3 pounds of beef, a 1/4 cup of Worcestershire, the beef bouillon cubes, which I crunched up a little bit just to help them dissolve, and the beer. Now you can use a light beer, something not too flavorful, you know, Coors Light, Bud Light, something like that. I have an MGD, so I use MGD. All right, we're gonna let the peppers cook until they're soft, and then we're gonna let the meat cook until it's browned up. All right, so I made a small error there. I don't know if it was because I was recording and I was thinking of the steps, but I totally messed up. Brown your meat first. Brown it completely first, then put in the Worcestershire, the bouillon cubes, and the beer after the meat is already browned. It's not going to hurt it if you do it before. It tasted fine. The chili tasted great. I just think you get better clumps of meat when you brown it first. All right, when the meat and the peppers are done cooking, we're going to transfer it over to a giant pot. All right, it's time to move on to doing some of the seasoning and getting in the final bits of the ingredients. So you're going to add in 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, 1 14.5-ounce can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, 1 12-ounce can of tomato paste, a 1/2 cup of white wine, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 2 tablespoons of ground cumin, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 2.5 teaspoons of dried basil,
1.5 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, half a teaspoon of crushed ground pepper, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and about 16 ounces of kidney beans. Now, we tend to like ours meaty and beany, so we tend to do a little bit more. Stir it in.
Now, if your chili at this point is too thick, I tend to add in a cup or 2 of water. You need to eyeball it. I don't like my chili so thick that it sticks to the plate, but I don't like it so thin that it's a soup. So somewhere in between. It depends on how much chili you made, but typically, like I said, I add in at least 2, maybe possibly 3 cups of water. So we don't like using cans of red kidney beans. We actually get a bag of dark kidney beans and soak them overnight in water and then cook them for about 15 minutes before we add them to the chili. The kidney beans at that point are going to be al dente, and they'll finish when the chili cooks for the next 90 minutes.
And because I have an abundance of tomatoes in my garden, we're going to throw some roughly chopped, fresh cut up tomatoes. All right, when we've got everything into the pot, we're going to bring it up to a boil. Once it's at a boil, we're going to reduce it down to simmer and let it cook for 90 minutes covered so that the flavors can start to develop and everything can start to taste like a good chili. Now, with any stew or chili, make sure you're constantly stirring throughout the cooking process. Maybe every 10 minutes, come back and stir the chili. About 45 minutes into the cook, grab a spoon and make sure your chili tastes the way that you want it to taste. I happen to taste this already, and man, is this seriously good. If you need to, adjust the seasoning to whatever you desire. I keep my seasonings off to the side as I cook to make sure that if I need to add anything, I can add anything in the process. But otherwise, let it cook for another 45 minutes. So after an hour and a half, you wind up with this. One of the most flavorful chilies you'll probably ever taste. Now you can garnish it whatever your favorite garnish is. Yeah, I like fresh chopped onions. Some people like sour cream and cilantro. The choice is yours. Some people actually like cheese on top of it. Like I said, the choice is absolutely yours. I hope you enjoy this recipe. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was my take on chili con carne. You know, my family loves it. It's not super spicy. It's not super sweet. It's kind of right in the middle, and it makes everybody happy here. And if we want to spice it up, those who do want it spicier can easily add some stuff to make it spicier. So, if you liked the video, hit that like button. If you're not subscribers, please subscribe. And if you want to follow me on any of my social media, you can find the links in the description below. We'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.